Hi guys, and welcome to Freckle Finance. Today's video is on renting versus purchasing a home. Ever wondered whether you should be renting or buying your home? Most people assume that buying is always the best option. However, in reality, that's not always the case. When you're figuring out whether you should rent or purchase a home, there are several factors that you do need to look at and really assess to determine whether renting or buying is the better option. A major thing that people tend to forget about when they're purchasing a home is that there are a lot of fees to purchasing a home and a lot of fees later when you sell the home. People just look at how much money can be made on the home, but they don't look at the expenses of a home, such as real estate, closing costs, the lawyer fees, land transfer tax. This is something you need to take into consideration as a cost to your home. Figure out how much that would be when you're assessing whether it is actually better to rent or purchase. Sometimes those land transfer tax can be so steep that it may actually just be better to rent. You also want to look at how much the cost of renting and purchasing are in your area. Some areas it's very, very cheap to rent compared to how much it is to own a house. However, in some areas it's very, very expensive to rent compared to the cost of owning a house. So those types of situations can really affect whether it is better for you in the long run to rent or buy. Current mortgage rates is another big thing. Now, right now, mortgage rates are quite low. So for most people, this is not really a negative thing for purchasing and is actually very pro purchasing right now. However, I do want to point out that there is a subcategory of people who are sub and subprime who will be paying higher interest rates. How much on average is the value of homes in your area increasing? If they are increasing wildly, kind of like they are in Vancouver and Toronto, it may be better to purchase a home. However, sometimes you purchase a home and you put a lot of money into it and it really doesn't make much money over 5 years or longer, and it may not have been worth it when you go to sell the home and you end up at a net loss. Related to this is how long you're going to be in the house for. So if you are planning on owning this home for quite a long time, it usually tends to be worth it to own the home. However, if you're in there for a short period of time, the prices of the home may have gone down, and with the closing costs and cost of selling, you may actually end up at a loss. As well, something a lot of people miss is people don't take into consideration how much the stock market is making, or the average that is generally increasing. And this is a value you need to take into consideration, because if you are spending a significantly less amount of money on your rent than your mortgage, and you can invest the difference and make a lot more money, it may actually make more sense to rent the place. A lot of times when people are considering purchasing a home, they only take into consideration the amount that a mortgage costs, and there is actually a lot more money that goes into a house. So you can't compare the price of rent with a mortgage to how much the value of the house goes up. Some of the costs that go into owning a home that you don't have with renting is maintenance, property tax, and the interest you're paying on the mortgage, because that is a cost. It's also important to keep in mind that just because owning a home or renting a home made sense to your neighbor who lives beside you or a family or friend who lives in another city doesn't mean that it's right for you in your current circumstances. I also want to point out that I am no way pro or anti either of these options. We are currently renting. We plan to own one day. Both options are great. It's just really good if you're wanting to make your net worth as high as you can, as quickly as you can, that you should take into consideration the differences between renting and buying. One last cost, and this can also be a huge cost, is how frequently you think you're going to move out of the city. If you're in an unstable job industry that causes you to move quite often, it's a lot easier to move and leave quickly for other work if you're renting. I actually have a link below for a calculator you can use. This calculator is by no means perfect, and you do have to kind of know some other values, but it is a much easier way than you trying to figure this all out, doing your own math, whether renting or buying makes more sense in your area. So definitely check the calculator out. You can even play with the numbers, work with it. It's a really good calculator that can help you figure out whether renting or purchasing is better for you. And we actually did a similar assessment when we were first moving to Toronto, and we concluded that we were going to rent. Now, one of the main reasons for that is we figured we weren't going to stay in our apartment for very long. We've been here almost 5 years, so clearly that part didn't happen. However, Personally, it still seems like it was better for us in our current situation to continue renting because the price of our rent has never increased. So we haven't had an increase in costs in rent, but the prices have gone up in value, but maybe not quite as much as would have been expected as we thought when we moved here. And our overall monthly costs would have been significantly higher if we purchased the place, which would have made it more difficult for us to invest so much into the market. Whether to rent or purchase a home is a very personal decision, and some people will ultimately decide, even though it doesn't make the best financial sense, that they love the security of owning their own home. And that's also a great thing to take into consideration. If you're not subscribed already, make sure you click that button below, as well as you can like me on Facebook. I do have content that is not on my YouTube channel. And as always, no matter what your financial situation is, try to have a great day. Bye.